Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight, you are invited to wander through a realm of soft mystery and serene enchantment. Take a slow, steady breath in and allow the day's stresses to melt away on your exhale. Feel the warmth of comfort envelop you, as if a woolen blanket has been gently draped over your shoulders. Ahead lies a journey into the misty moors of Wuthering Heights, a gentle Gothic evening that promises solace rather than tension, and calm rather than fright. As you settle in and your eyelids grow heavier, let your mind drift toward the distant glow of moonlight shining on wide, rolling moorland. The stones and grasses on the path ahead are waiting, and the mist is ready to embrace your every step. Inhale once again and allow yourself to sink deeper into your resting place. This night is yours. This time is sacred. Let the hush of breath guide you forward, and with each soft exhalation, release any lingering concerns. You are here now, ready to explore a space where every whisper of wind welcomes you to unwind. With the hush of the world around you, drift gently into the story that will soon unfold. Beyond that gentle beckoning, there is an old estate perched on the edge of the mist-laden moors, and a quiet soul who lives behind its tall, weathered gates. The evening is thick with possibility, a tapestry of silver fog, twinkling starfields, and far-off silhouettes of lonely trees. Breathe softly and deeply as the evening calls. Feel yourself surrender to the calm, letting go of the busy fray of daytime life. This is your gentle invitation. Now, let us step quietly into the story that awaits. On a soft autumn evening, when the sky carried a dusky glow and the clouds moved slowly across the horizon, a traveller named Marianne approached the outskirts of a time-worn stone estate. It stood near the boundary of the misty moors, a place of pale grasses and quiet hills. There, the wind brushed the earth in tender sweeps, stirring memories of old tales that drifted on the breeze. Marianne was neither from these parts, nor a stranger to new environs. But the call of the moors had drawn her like a lullaby. She had heard whispers of this land's tranquil secrets, of the gentle hush that settled over the hills at twilight, of the distant call of night birds that evoked a sense of age-old wonder. Her journey began earlier that day, travelling in a modest carriage past villages with leaning cottages and quaint hearths burning in windows. By the time the sun gave its final glow on the horizon, she found herself upon a winding path lined with craggy rocks and tangled heather. The estate rose in the distance, dark stones outlined by moonlight, its walls touched by creeping ivy. A single lantern flickered by the entry gate, almost like a silent greeting. The night was still young, yet an air of restful calm lay everywhere. In the distance, the moors unfurled like a gentle wave of silver and green. Tendrils of fog clung to the grass, weaving and drifting as if dancing to a melody only the quiet earth could hear. The wind itself was almost a lullaby, a gentle hush moving through the gnarled branches of stunted oak trees. Nearby, a solitary crow perched, occasionally shifting its wings, but uttering no cry. The expanse of the land was hushed, a contemplative silence resting on every stone and strand of grass. Marianne approached the main gate, where weathered iron curlicues framed the estate's front garden. It was not large or opulent, but there was a dignified charm in every chipped brick and every rusted hinge. She paused, her breath forming a thin wisp in the cool air, and wondered about the stories these walls held. The hush of the surroundings encouraged her to step forward, to venture into the quiet courtyard. All around her, the mist curled in playful shapes, rising from the moors before settling around her feet, as if beckoning her deeper into its embrace. Inside the courtyard, a modest fountain trickled with crystal clarity. Its waters shimmered beneath the moon's pale glow, casting faint rippling reflections onto the stone walls. Ivy and creeping moss crowned the edges, revealing that time had passed here in gentle but certain measure. Yet there was warmth in the atmosphere, as though these stones had seen generations come and go, weaving a tapestry of quiet resilience. Marianne, her travelling cloak draped around her shoulders, glanced upward at the manor's old leaded windows. Some were dark, yet from one near the front door, a mellow glow promised welcome. She pressed her hand softly against the carved wooden door, and it opened with a subtle groan. Inside, the main hall revealed a polished wooden floor, and walls hung with tapestries, their colours faded by time, but still brimming with hints of old stories. The air smelled of aged wood, faintly tinged with lavender and beeswax candles. Even in its silence, the house seemed to breathe, exhaling centuries of gentle memory. A caretaker, an older woman named Mrs. Fenwick, appeared from around a corner, her lantern guiding the way. She greeted Marianne without surprise or alarm, as though expecting a visitor precisely at this hour. Her voice was soft, kind, a low murmur that perfectly matched the hush of the surrounding moors. Inviting Marianne in, she guided her through a corridor lined with windows revealing glimpses of the twilight. The sky beyond was a tapestry of deep blues and purples, punctuated by the occasional star. The moor's fog approached the estate in gentle waves, brushing against the windows like a curious spirit. Mrs. Fenwick led Marianne to a cosy sitting room where a modest fire danced. The flicker of its light cast welcoming shadows on the oak beams overhead. A plush armchair, worn by years of use, beckoned near the hearth. It whispered promises of rest, and Marianne found herself sinking into it with ease. The caretaker placed a warm cup of chamomile tea on a small table. Steam rose in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of herbs and honey. Beyond the window, the moon had climbed higher, bathing the land in a quieter silver luminescence. As Marianne sat there, she recalled whispered tales about the moors. Some claimed they were home to tempestuous spirits, roaming at night with restless energy. Yet, in this calm hour, any whispers of ghosts felt distant and gentle, more like echoes of half-forgotten lullabies. The estate's presence was not of haunting gloom, but of gentle, patient memory. Above the mantel hung a portrait of the manor's founders, their expressions soft, their eyes seeming to watch over the hearth with a timeless compassion. It felt in there as though the walls themselves exhaled tranquility. When Marianne finished her tea, Mrs. Fenwick suggested she settle into the guest chamber, an inviting room on the second floor. The caretaker offered only a small measure of direction, letting Marianne wander at her own pace. The hallway to the stairs was lit by flickering sconces, each flame swaying to an invisible breeze. The wooden steps creaked underfoot, not in a menacing way, but in a soothing lull, a testament to the stories of many footsteps that had traversed them over the years. Echoes of the past seemed to flow around her, each telling its own sleepy tale of how time moved gently here. The guest room was simple, a four-poster bed, draped with heavy curtains in mossy green, stood against one wall, and across from it, a window overlooked the moors in their nocturnal splendour. Marianne placed her cloak on a small stand, then approached the window. She pulled the velvet drapes aside, revealing the rolling land below, touched by a faint glimmer from the moon. In the distance, the swirling mist rose again, blanketing small rocks and low shrubs. As far as her eyes could see, the moorland extended, a quiet tapestry of shadow and silver glow, enthralling in its calm mystery. Marianne felt no urge to sleep just yet. The atmosphere was too inviting, too richly woven with gentle currents of air and the soft hush of distant night birds. So she slipped back into her cloak and quietly made her way out of the room. She wandered down a narrow staircase she'd noticed earlier, one that led out the back of the estate. A discreet door opened onto a small walled garden. The stones underfoot glimmered with dew. Each step she took left a faint print on the damp walkway. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of moist earth and distant bog myrtle. Crossing through this small garden, Marianne found an old iron gate that opened directly onto the moors. The latch lifted easily, revealing a hidden path winding away from the estate. Though perhaps this might have seemed eerie in another time or place, the moors enveloped her in a gentle hush, as if welcoming a late-night visitor. Slivers of moonlight and drifting mist formed playful shapes across the path. The breeze was calm, softly combing through the tall grasses. Overhead, the sky showed a cluster of bright stars, each trembling faintly in the sky's infinite tapestry. As Marianne walked, she listened closely to the crunch of gravel beneath her feet, to the distant chirp of nocturnal insects, to the mild rustle of heather as the breeze teased the moorland shrubs. Everything felt softened by the night's embrace, touched by a gentleness that soothed the senses. Far off, a small shape flitted across the horizon. A fox, perhaps, or some quiet creature stirring. It crossed from one patch of fog to another, as if stepping between two worlds. Marianne watched with calm fascination, her heart lulled by the rhythmic quiet. Further along, she found a large, flat rock overlooking a shallow vale in the moor. There, she paused to take in the sight. The fogs rolled through the dip in the land, forming a pale sea of vapor that shimmered under the moon. The whisper of the wind carried the softest of songs, as though the moors themselves hummed a lullaby to any who cared to listen. Time felt slower here, each moment drawn out like a gentle breath. A sense of timelessness began to settle around her, gently coaxing her mind into stillness. Stories of yesteryear played at the edges of Marianne's thoughts. She had heard of a place called Wuthering Heights in these parts, a name spoken with something like reverence. Tales told of passionate storms and winds that howled across the stones, forging a legacy of turbulent romance. But here, under this calm moon, there was only hush and soft intrigue. Perhaps the moors possessed different moods at different times, shifting from wild ferocity to gentle dreamscapes with the turning of the seasons. Tonight, they offered only a soothing mystery. After some time, Marianne rose from the rock and wandered back, finding the subtle path that meandered toward the estate. Another nocturnal creature rustled through the bracken, briefly revealing its shining eyes. She felt a kinship with these creatures of the night, each awake and alert in a world largely at rest. From a distance, a gentle light shone from the manor's windows, guiding her home like a lighthouse beacon through a foggy sea. Step by step, she felt the hush of the moors begin to cradle her in a drowsy comfort, as though inviting her to carry that calm within. Upon returning, she slipped quietly through the iron gate, back into the walled garden. Mrs. Fenwick was nowhere to be seen, likely retired to her own quarters. The house seemed to breathe a silent sigh of welcome, each floorboard and rafter resonating with centuries of patient watchfulness. Marianne carefully made her way up the stairs, noticing how each step felt lighter now. Something about the moors at night had soothed her spirit, casting out tension and replacing it with a languid sense of contentment. In her guest chamber, the moonlight spilled through the window, washing the bed in a pale glow. She drew the curtains just enough to dim the light, then sat for a moment on the edge of the mattress. The drapes around the bed were plush and comforting, reminiscent of a small sanctuary. The quiet hush of the moors played in her ears, and as she settled back against the pillows, a sense of deep relaxation began to settle in her limbs. Her mind drifted to the caretaker's gentle smile, the flicker of lantern light in the corridor, the drifting haze on the moors. She imagined how centuries past, wanderers might have found solace here, letting the hush of the estate lull them into restful sleep after a day of long travel. A mild gust of wind stirred outside, gently rattling a nearby shutter, but the sound was more soothing than startling, like a distant friend reminding her of the living world. Slowly, her eyelids grew heavier, weighed down by peace rather than exhaustion. While Marianne slept, the house and the moors continued their nighttime vigil. Outside, a faint moorland owl glided across the starlit expanse, wings moving in near-silent strokes. The creature perched on a twisted branch of a solitary tree, gazing across the rolling land as if keeping watch. The fog thickened and thinned in gentle waves, occasionally parting to reveal patches of moonlit grass or the winding pathway leading away from the estate. All was quiet, and in that quiet there was a potent sense of renewal. Near dawn, a gentle, pearly light began to edge over the horizon, turning the sky from deep indigo to a softer hue. The moors stirred ever so slightly, with tiny beads of dew forming on heather blooms, and stones shining with morning moisture. Marianne slept on, her dreams filled with the softness of the night's wonder. As the sun crept higher, the mist caught its early rays, glowing faintly as though woven from strands of silver thread. When she woke, it was to the sound of a low, crackling fire in the small hearth of her room. Mrs. Fenwick had quietly tended it, leaving a fresh pot of tea on a side table. The morning light, diffused by fog, filtered through the window in gentle beams. Though the moors by daylight were lovely, their intrigue felt subdued compared to the mysterious hush of the evening. Yet, in Marianne's heart lingered the memory of mist-laden enchantment. She rose from the bed and took a few sips of tea, letting the warmth fill her with a mellow contentment. Dressed for the day, she padded lightly into the corridor and down the stairs. In the dining room, a simple breakfast was set out. Warm bread, fresh butter, and a jar of honey. The window in that room overlooked a small orchard, where morning dew still glistened on the leaves of apple trees. A sense of calm pervaded the air, reminding her of the gentle hush she had experienced overnight. The estate carried this aura at all hours, it seemed, welcoming each visitor into its serene rhythm. After breakfast, Marianne decided to explore a bit more. She found a dusty library at the back of the house, lined with shelves of old books bound in well-worn leather. A tall window in the library overlooked the moors, revealing how they looked under a sky brightening with each passing hour. She ran her fingers gently over the spines, reading titles of ghost stories, poetry, and genealogies of local families. Despite the whispered rumours surrounding these lands, the quiet comfort she felt in the library spoke of a gentle heritage, one that honoured rest, reflection, and tranquility. Seated in a high-backed chair by the library window, Marianne leafed through a volume of poetry. The words spoke of moonlit wanderings, of listening to the moor's voice in the hush of evening. Time passed slowly, and she found herself transported by each verse into a realm where nighttime was a veil revealing secrets only to those who approached with a calm heart. Though the day had begun, that aura of mystery lingered in her spirit, a tender memory of the midnight walk. Late morning gave way to afternoon, and the estate's hush deepened, as though the house itself settled into a midday repose. Marianne met the caretaker briefly in the hall. Mrs. Fenwick inquired how her rest had been, and Marianne replied that it was the most peaceful slumber she had experienced in quite some time. It felt, she explained, that the moors had whispered her to sleep. The caretaker smiled knowingly, remarking that these lands have always held a gentle pull, offering a cradle for weary souls who come in need of quiet. Afternoon light poured through tall windows in golden beams, making dust motes shimmer like tiny stars. The stone floors felt comfortably cool, and the corridors were lulled into peaceful silence. In a small study near the back of the house, Marianne discovered an aged map pinned to the wall. It showed the moors and surrounding villages. Near the border was marked Wuthering Heights, a name circled in faded ink. She couldn't help but smile, wondering how many travellers had come seeking dramatic storms, only to find themselves lulled by the moor's gentler nature. Feeling the day's slowness wrap around her like a soft shawl, Marianne stepped outside again. The estate's walls and ivy-laden corners framed a view of the moors, now bright under the afternoon sun. The veil of mist had lifted somewhat, revealing gently rolling hills, patches of heather, and far-off copses of wind-sculpted trees. The quiet remained, though it was broken now and then by a bird's call or the soft hum of the breeze stirring wild grasses. Even in daylight, the moors felt imbued with a gentle kind of mystery, their presence somehow both comforting and endlessly intriguing. She wandered only a short distance this time, preferring to soak in the estate's protective aura. At one point, she found a small pond ringed by flagstones. Its surface mirrored the sky, reflecting drifting cotton-like clouds. A dragonfly skimmed across the water, its wings glimmering as it hovered above the reeds. She leaned against the old stone wall, letting her gaze drift out over the moors again. Daylight offered a serene palette of soft greens and pale browns, yet she felt a lingering longing for the silvery hush of night. The moors, it seemed, showed only a fraction of themselves under the sun. Eventually, the day ambled toward evening once more. Marianne returned to the manor, where Mrs. Fenwick invited her for a quiet meal. The dining table was set with a modest spread of homemade soup, bread, and a small dish of stewed fruits. Candlelight played across the room, dancing in the polished silverware. Through the window, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the clouds with mauve and rose, its final farewell before the moors reclaimed their dusky cloak. They shared a few stories in hushed tones, Mrs. Fenwick recounting how she came to care for the estate, Marianne sharing snippets of her own travels. Their voices rose and fell softly, blending with the gentle crackle of the hearth. As the sky outside deepened into twilight, the caretaker bid her guest a comforting good night leaving Marianne alone to observe the slow arrival of dusk. The transformation was subtle but mesmerizing. Pale streaks of color vanished, replaced by a deepening blue, and the first bright star flickered into view. Marianne felt a familiar pull toward the moors. She donned her cloak once more and stepped outside. Tonight, the mist arrived earlier and heavier, flowing across the earth in long, silken ribbons. Moonlight filtered through, creating an otherworldly glow. She wandered through the walled garden, hearing the faint drip of water from the fountain, and opened the old gate. Outside, the path welcomed her again, winding through glistening stones and soft, dew-laden grasses. This time, the hush felt even deeper, as if the night itself had paused to allow the land a full moment of breath. She walked quietly, each step muffled by the damp earth. The moors rolled out in front of her like a sleeping giant, blanketed by the swirling mist. The wind whispered in long, slow currents, as though singing a lullaby. Far off, a lone tree rose from the hillside, its branches swaying gently, the bark groaning in the wind's caress. The night sky, free of cloud cover, revealed a tapestry of stars, each glimmering with patient radiance, their reflections dancing upon the soft curvature of the fog below. Somewhere, on a far-off ridge, the silhouette of a grand old structure could be glimpsed through the haze. Perhaps it was the legendary Wuthering Heights, or another estate steeped in quiet history. The shape appeared and vanished in the shifting mist, like an apparition. Yet there was no fear in Marianne's heart, only a sense of awe at how the land moved in silent harmony with the night. The hush around her was intimate, an invitation into a realm of gentle dreams. Eventually, she found herself at the same rock that overlooked the shallow vale. The fog stretched into the distance, luminous under the moon's soft gaze. Though the air was crisp, she felt warm inside, comforted by the presence of these ancient hills. She closed her eyes, listening to the faint rustle of heather and the small, distant calls of nighttime creatures. Her breathing slowed. Each exhale seemed to merge with the fog, carrying away any remaining weight from her thoughts. She sensed the moors were telling her it was time to rest, to let go, to welcome the deep, renewing slumber that the night offered. At length, she rose and returned to the estate. The warm glow from the windows guided her back through the garden gate. Inside, candlelight still flickered in the corridor. She climbed the stairs to her room, already feeling the gentle pull of sleep weigh on her limbs. Before she pulled the curtains closed, she looked out one last time at the mysterious sea of mist rolling across the land. The soft shapes of the moors disappeared into the darkness, becoming a canvas of possibilities for her dreams. She slipped between the covers, the bed embracing her in warmth and softness. Now, the hush of night settles around you too. The story has floated around and through you, weaving a peaceful tapestry in your imagination. In the stillness, let your breath fall into a gentle, unhurried rhythm. Feel your shoulders release tension, drifting down into perfect ease. Each thought that tries to linger is softly carried away by the mist, leaving only the faint echoes of moonlit pathways and rustling heather. As the moments stretch out, you feel the comforting weight of rest pull you closer to sleep. Every breath is a gentle current guiding you deeper, like a soft tide carrying you out to a tranquil sea. In the quiet corners of your mind, the moors remain, bathed in moonlight, welcoming you back whenever you need the solace of their hush. Let that calm wash over you now. Here, in this peaceful realm, the echoes of footfalls on gravel have faded away. The flicker of the lantern in the hallway has grown dim. Your thoughts rest in a place of gentle stillness, guided by the lullaby of a wind brushing across rolling hills. Drifting, floating, softly descending into the tender cradle of sleep. You are free to let go. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well. May the misty moors watch over you, cradling you in the softest dreams until morning's light.